Test. There we are. Got the scene window here. I got to put up that Bitcoin chart, though. That's what I really got to do. That's what I really got to do right now. All right, we'll give it another minute. Let some people jump on here. All right, cool. Let me make sure I got these links open too, Jack.
No problem.
Trading view. What's going on, everyone? If you're just jumping on now, give us a minute. We're going to get settled in here, letting some more people come on. Coming to you from a few platforms tonight. We're going to be talking Bitcoin. We're going to be talking Silk Road, Ross Ulbricht. We're going to be talking the future of crypto here. So if you're tuning in, stay tuned in. You're going to be learning a lot about Bitcoin, where the market currently is right now, what the charts are looking like, and what the next couple of years could or could not potentially look like. So definitely stay tuned. I'm just pulling up one more chart here on my end, then we're going to get started. If you guys got any questions at any point, just leave a comment. I have an active comments window here. So I'm on Restream. What I'm doing is we're streaming across multiple platforms right now. So I might not be able to see if you're on Facebook, for example, but if you leave a comment, let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions at any point during the next 20 to 30 minutes or so, let us know. Again, today we'll be talking about some of the latest news on the $1 billion Bitcoin seizure by the U.S. government from the Silk Road. We'll be talking about Bitcoin. We'll look at the charts. And Jack is going to be kind of walking us through some of the technical analysis and what the charts are looking like here. But that's it. But, I mean, Jack's back on. You guys remember Bitcoin Jack. I don't know if you do or you don't, but if you don't, you can head back to the adoption channel and you can look at the wine night update. We got a Bitcoin update with Jack. This is another Bitcoin update with Jack. And guess what? I got wine, Jack.
I got scotch.
Hey.
Cheers.
Cheers, brother. So, yeah, man. So here we are. It is November 9th, 2020. We have seen in 2020 so far.
A shit ton of things happen, to say the least.
A shit ton of things. We like the dollar specifically is the one thing that's been talked about forever. Like is, for the longest time now, you've heard people say, the amount of debt that the U.S. has, the dollar can't make it. The gold bugs, the big gold investors from the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s, right? By this point, we're in 2020. It's your grandfather who would have been telling you, oh, saving gold because you never know what's going to happen with that dollar. And this year, we're actually seeing it come to fruition, man. The amount of inflation we've had is pretty significant. It's historical.
Yeah, and I mean, where people really get held up on that inflation term is your inflation is different than my inflation. We all do different things, and the prices of goods and services have varied between everyone. So it's are you talking day-to-day things like food and essential services? I mean, definitely medical care has gone up for sure. But food has kind of remained relatively flat. You could say that the coronavirus definitely changed price, but I wouldn't say it was because of necessarily the dollar. It was more like people not working. So it was like a supply and a demand shock. And that was kind of what the market was trying to price in at the beginning. But certainly we've seen asset price inflation. And that is where, the typical CPI doesn't actually account for anything. So if you're talking about the value of your dollar versus financial assets or real estate, it's you're probably down quite a bit this year if you were holding dollars. So, it's a rough world out there. It's tough to navigate because everything is changing.
And by CPI, what Jack means too, like one. So I find a lot of people just haven't learned about economics, and sometimes when us finance people just start going off, or if you're in the markets, you get cost. But CPI, Consumer Price Index, so that's like inflation in your goods, so your groceries, your normal stuff. Because what is inflation? Inflation is the creation of more of the currency, ultimately the underlying currency, right?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it's like it's the supply and demand of goods and services. So if you have more money chasing fewer and fewer services, you're going to get inflation. And typically, we saw inflation through rising wages. So if you have consistently rising wages, you're going to see inflation. So that's kind of what you saw in the 70s, is what everyone talks about, was the rising of the wages and the inflation. But here we're kind of expanding the monetary policy. So it seems like that's going straight to the financial assets. It's not going to the overall general economy, because at the end of the day, that money that is being printed is all in reserves, which is through credit. So you're limiting who that money goes to, and it's not going to the real economy. It's not going to the bottom. So you're not seeing the velocity of money increase, even though the expansion of money is occurring, which is what's concerning to the Fed. So they're kind of fighting this double-edged sword of where to. It's all, if you're going to pay attention to anything, it's all about where they're inserting the money into the economy is probably the most important thing to be looking at.
And by the velocity of money, the
It's just the speed at which money is transacted through the economy. So
you got a good chart on that, because like I want to show people that during this live stream right now, like the comparison.
I'm gonna have to pull one up.
I got it right here, because the charts that we're talking about, it paints a perfect picture on what we're seeing in the world today, what we're seeing in the markets. I showed the wealth gap before to show that right now in the U.S. for the first time since the 20s and 30s, 1920s and 30s. The wealth gap is just as bad. The inequality with income is just as bad. We see that. And at the same, so that means, top less than 1% own the same as the bottom 90%. So that means that they have more of the money. And then we see the velocity of money chart, like you're saying, which means how much is the money flowing through the system, and it drops off. So it shows that like these rich people, all the 0.1% of elitists that have the money, they have it, and they're not even spending it. It's not moving through the system at all. So it's broken,
It's all tied up in the financial assets, and that's kind of the problem. So I don't think we'll see any quote unquote inflation unless we start seeing a change in how they're inserting the money into the economy. So if we see more stimulus and more towards the bottom end of the economy, you would definitely expect to see velocity hopefully increase, and that would definitely give rise to some inflation, which is what everyone is kind of chasing after. So yeah, the easy way to think of it is how many times does a dollar get spent per year? That's really all it is. How many times is money moving through the market? And the higher that number, it signals a healthier economy. So when you look at the charts, it's like everyone says the charts in the stock market is not the real economy, and that's true, because the real economy is the bottom of the economy. That's the soul is the hard workers at the bottom that are really consuming,
right,
is what's driving the economy, the real economy,
not this fake ass economy.
Nope. Yeah, it's insane how manipulated it feels, and it's like understanding what Bitcoin is and looking at everything that's going on. It's like, do people just not care? Or do they not understand it? Like, I don't know. Or is it just like, is it just that our school systems are so corrupt in teaching economics that everyone's been brainwashed to learn this Maynard Keynes type economics, where debt and GP, and that's the baseline of that is you need inflation. And so if you're taught that, then you're not even ever going to look at what the problem is if your fundamentals are wrong and you're not even questioning the fundamentals, you know?
Yeah, I think they're not taught it. Like I think that people just in general, like me as someone that's gone through the public school system not too long ago, you don't
Yeah.
learn about money, you don't learn about
Not
economics.
once.
You
Not
know,
once.
you're expected to you're expected to earn it, you're expected to spend it, you're expected to save in it, you're expected to invest in it, but no one tells you what it is. And then no one tells you the interest rate, what interest rates are, and the mechanism and tools that like
Hmm.
people get you in. And this is why Max Kaiser's dubbed it financial terrorism. It is it's in a way
It
it's
kind of
like
is.
kind of like you're preying on people that don't know. And
It's like you can always go back to the basics of like everyone I feel like has read, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, and like that's like the one thing he talks about is like people aren't taught money. Like there is little financial education, if anything.
mm-hmm.
And it really takes kind of one's self curiosity to find it, I guess, and to learn that there's other ways in managing and constructing an economy.
Yeah.
And I could speak for myself. It's like until um, college, I would say I didn't even have one single problem about what's the future value of money via some interest rate or your expected what's your present value of money if it's worth this much in the future. Simple economic calculations was not even covered until college, and it's like, and that was finally forced upon me. But I
Mm-hmm.
think I think it's designed this way for a very specific reason. um and people kind of don't want to talk about that.
What advice would you have for someone like our age who's realized they finally like have woken up to the fact that this is going on, they want to learn more, like once you
Are you
where
talking Bitcoin in general or the general
no, well,
economy?
economy, like walk me through your process of when you started really paying attention to what was going on in the economy and you started learning about how the economy worked and you started learning about economics and you started learning about Bitcoin, like
Yeah,
because
yeah.
what I get from people sometimes is you're like, Joe, like you're pretty well versed in that, you know a lot. How did you learn? Like they're trying to find a path to learning. What was your path
Yeah.
to learning and onboarding?
Um, it's a good question. So I would say like I would take the ignorance is bliss kind of path at the beginning. So I definitely started in the stock market first. And just everyone kind of has this dream that they're going to be some professional day trader, and they're gonna get the Lambo in a year, and it's all going to be over. But that's just not how it works unless you get extremely extremely lucky with stupid risk.
Mm.
And so the easiest way to learn is to obviously just get skin in the game in the stock market. You'll start paying attention to the headlines. Um, and then obviously Twitter, follow people who you trust, who seem knowledgeable, get a diverse view. But if you really want to start digging deeper into the economy, you kind of have to get into the rabbit hole a little bit of you either go into the Bitcoin rabbit hole or
Mm-hmm.
you go into like the US equity perma bear rabbit hole, which I would say the perma bear rabbit hole is not really a place you want to be in because it's just full of negativity, But some of the points that they speak of are quite valid. So it's like you could be this perma bull, but it doesn't matter if you or sorry, this perma bear. I meant perma bear, not perma
I
bull.
was gonna let you go a little bit.
Yeah, the perma bears are just very negative, and but they do have good points, and so you do want to hear what they have to say. At some point they're probably going to be right, and that's typically how shorting the stock market is like you have to be right 100% if you're going to short because the market can remain a lot more irrational for a lot longer than you can stay solvent. So
Mm.
I would say in terms of getting in is just kind of start getting skin in the game and start just asking people questions, start listening to podcasts on your free time. And it's not something that just comes overnight, gradually comes. You want to try to start with the easier content, the stuff that you can stay involved in when you listen to. Don't just go to some crazy financial podcasts where you don't even understand one of the terms that they're talking about because you're kind of going to be lost for a lot longer than you want to be. So I'd say start small and kind of work up from there. That's kind of how I did it. I mean, it's been, really a 4-year process at this point. It's like I really didn't care too much about anything until like 2017 when I first found Bitcoin. Well, I wouldn't say it's when I first found it, when I first invested in it. I knew about it since 2011 and said it, it was a joke and forgot about it. And then
that was a mistake.
The headlines. Oh, of course. I know. Like, I was the one laughing at my friends saying, you guys are idiots. And, it's kind of like we flipped the table. It's like, now it's like into it. And, I'm kind of in this maximalist position.
Did you hear those horns?
Oh, yeah.
Give Jack an applause, everyone. He found out how to buy Bitcoin. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
well, hey,
it's quite easy too.
So it is. So like, I left a link for them to buy Bitcoin, a tutorial on how to buy Bitcoin through Swan Bitcoin. I only have 2 tutorials on that website, but I'm trying to onboard more. Dollar cost averaging is something that we always talk about, and that's the way that's why I think, in my opinion, that the savings accounts are set up the way they are. When people pay into their 401ks now, they get it out of every paycheck. So I've been trying to promote dollar cost averaging, buying each week through Swan Bitcoin or these other apps. But I mean, how are you primarily, or how have you, for whatever you want to disclose, acquired your Bitcoin in the past? Like, what are some of the onboards onto Bitcoin that you found are most useful to you?
I mean,
how do you buy your sats? How do you stack sats, Jack? How do you stack sats?
I wish I could give you the easy answer and just say I bought recurringly with Swan, but that's not the case, obviously. I definitely bought some larger purchases, trying to time the market. I was becoming really self-aware of what was going on during the kind of the tail end of the bear market. The first 3K low. And I was doing a lot of reading, and I just kind of threw some Hail Marys out there and ended up getting filled, which I was really happy about. And that was, back in 2018. I believe it was 2018. December 2018. December 2018.
Can we pull up the chart while we're talking about this real quick? I'm going to pull up the chart because I want you to be able to show people this right now with the charts too. All right, y'all. We're going to the charts real quick. All right, Jack. We're on the charts.
Yeah, so I ended up, I remember when we were going sideways in this range, it felt like eternity, and then the waterfalls came, and we kind of just fell off a cliff. And there was so much panic. I mean, it was like you're seeing $2,000 days down. People are losing their minds, selling everything, and it's like, it's really hard to try to catch that falling knife because if you're wrong, it kind of sucks. So, I just kind of stuck to my guns and just held it. And I ended up, I would say it was more luck than skill. I was like, I kind of looked at these numbers and I was like, if we break these, if we break this 3K range, we're going a lot lower. And I just said, the likelihood of that occurring seems really low to me. And when you look, on the Mayer multiple, which is this here, we were hitting points that, Bitcoin only reaches on occasion, like the bear end of the bear market. And that is a really good indicator of kind of the oversold levels.
Yeah.
And if you look at the historics, how many standard deviation event are you talking about, So you just kind of have to think in probabilities there. And that's kind of where I did a lot of the buying, and I kind of let it run throughout the run up to 14K last year. And then I kind of buckled down and started doing more buying. But, is really just focusing on the dollar cost average perspective because, even the people that know the most can't time the markets, and the people that say they can time the markets, they're either bullshitting you or they're a whale and they're the market maker. So they are the market, which is likely or unlikely the case that you're talking to a whale.
Yeah.
So averaging in is obviously the best way to go, and it's
This
it's the most profitable because, like I said, you're never going to time it. So you're going to buy the highs and you're going to buy the lows, and that over time will actually lead you to a lower cost basis typically, unless you're kind of buying into the bull run, which is not bad either. So
so this is a good chart though to just talk about dollar cost averaging though. So again, what is dollar cost averaging? It means that you're purchasing Bitcoin every week or every 2 weeks or every month. You are
yeah,
purchasing
it's
over and over and over again, and by doing that, you're buying as the price is going up and as it's going down. And like Jack, like quickly tell me, like, over the last 2 years, what's the high that we hit? I guess it would have been this 14.8, right? So it was bouncing between 14,000 and then what was the
yeah.
low?
I mean, just this was July of 2019.
So that's
Uh,
13,
we hit
13.8. And what's the
yeah, we hit
low?
like 13.9, and the low was in March when everything sold off, which was 3.8. And
3.8.
so that's a huge difference. And like, no one really could have called that everything was going to sell off in March as hard
Mm-hmm.
as it did, especially in Bitcoin. So it's like, yeah, it's nice to have a stack of cash waiting to buy that, but not everyone can do that. And if you're buying on your way down from the 13.8, it's like you definitely found some good opportunities. Even when the price is going where we are now, it's like you've you're in the green now. So what are you really complaining about?
Mm-hmm.
So I
Um,
mean, a lot of people like to see these like the breakouts and the confirmation of the breakouts. So I think that's what we're kind of leading into now. So the yellow line that I have drawn, the diagonal yellow line, was kind of this uptrend that I was seeing on the hourly time frame. We were touching it a lot. We would grind on it, and then we would either pump through it or sell through it. And I found it to be very consistent. And then when we broke out of that $12,000 range, it was like, for breaking that 12, that high 12 number, like that 12.6, it was pretty obvious where we were going. And I don't think we're going to be touching that yellow line anymore. At least I hope not. I don't have the expectations that we do touch it. But this is kind of like that confirmation for a lot of the big names, like the professional investors. They carry a small position to keep them in check, to keep them interested, and to keep them involved. And they wait for these price signal breakouts, which I believe we saw, to kind of designate the trend. And if you kind of read the sentiment on Twitter, people are feeling pretty bullish, and there's a lot of news that there's just no more coin available for people to buy. And Bitcoin is the purest form of supply and demand.
mm. Yeah, and so like a lot of people look at this chart. I just want to walk through quickly this market cycle and how the market cycles work for Bitcoin, because that's something that I hear quite often from people, is like talking about price volatility. So that large spike that we saw, that the last time that Bitcoin hit its peak was that December 2019 top that we see at like 19,600, close to 20,000. And then it's dropped down 80+ % since, right?
Yeah.
But that's done that four other times before, right? The growth cycles work through these high parabolic growth phases, followed by a larger crash, 80% plus, into a consolidation, into a next growth phase. Scarcity
Yes.
ultimately was what's driving that market growth, right? But like, let's just walk through. Why don't you just walk through in your words for me? Just kind of what you think about like the actual growth cycles and stuff, just to explain it to people so they see that this has happened before, this has happened in the past, this is how it works.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to say like history repeats itself in Bitcoin, and they always try to draw these fractals, which are kind of just the past price movements overlaid on current. And while I kind of I like to believe that stuff is true, it seems like every run is different, because it's all it's based on the news, it's based on the perception of what's going on. And so we've come a lot further than say 2014, 2013. in Bitcoin in terms of uh, you know how people perceive of it, how many people know about it. So that's going to change the signals on the price. And the run up into in 2019, if you look at the Mayer multiple, which is just the price divided by the 200-day price, it's a ratio. If you look at the historical averages, we have this like orange line kind of at this 2.4 level, 2.4, which means that the price would be 2.4 times the 200-day average, which is just, the 200-day average is a pretty slow moving average line here. That 2.4 level, though, has been historically the indicators of a bull market, a strong bull market blow off top. And you can see multiple times, if I kind of go back in history, of us touching this line, but not really breaking through, maybe slightly. And then there's obviously pullbacks and sell-offs. And the time where you really blew it is over the top. This is a Coinbase chart, so we don't have any more data for the previous cycle. But if I was to go to Bitstamp or something like that, you would see something similar to this. And so that was a really pure indicator that this was not a breakout in terms of the full bull market. It was definitely a good sell signal, unless we were going to all-time highs in 2019. The sentiment was there, but it just didn't feel right in terms of timing. And so clearly we rejected from there, and we kind of made these super lows again, in the March sell-off, where we hit like basically a 0.4. So historically, like Bitcoin is only traded at that point level. Like, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's at least it's below 10 days, meaning like out of the entire, life cycle, only 10 days was it ever near that number. And those have always indicated strong bottom. So it was pretty obvious that we were, that there was a very big overreaction, and the price quickly rebounded from there.
And now, where are we headed? Where are we going, Jack?
It feels like we're going to all-time highs, which is great. I think when that happened,
it's been so long, brother.
People are going to be shaking. People are going to be shaking their heads at this thing. Like the Main Street, the Wall Street, the people, the naysayers, the people that have no skin in the game, shaking their heads at this, saying, what the hell am I missing about this asset?
All those,
we could obviously get pullbacks.
Yeah, the Jamie Dimons, the fucking
we could.
Your financial manager, your uncle, your CNBC, everyone that's been shitting on the idea of it because they all had skin in the old game that we talked about. Yeah, then you'll start hearing about it from them.
Yeah, I mean, you could always say to the naysayers, "Go and short it, I dare you." And obviously they won't do it. They know. They're just kind of stuck in their old ways, and they'll be chasing the top. It's all right.
So for people that are on Facebook or the other groups that don't have awareness in the market, though, let's talk about some like price projections. Like at this point, I think it's safe to say that we can bring this up because we're not saying the market's going to continue to go up, but it's looking pretty favorable. So for people that are always trying to price the market, it's not a good idea to price this market right now because there's a lot of upside potential from what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, how do you price this asset?
This is not financial advice either.
It definitely is not. How do you price? So, I mean, you have to everyone has a different definition of what Bitcoin is, but if you think of it as money, what is the value of money? Like, what's the value of the US dollar? Like, no one really knows because of all the derivatives that exist. If you take into account the derivatives, you're talking like over $2 quadrillion worth. Definitely not getting to those price levels, but we can see some major appreciation, and where the top is on this cycle is really dependent on, I want to say, more or less politics and just kind of what generally goes on in the economy with the coronavirus. In terms of like a pricing model, Plan B has probably the best model to date.
Can you
which
pull
is
that
the
up?
stock to flow model,
Can you
which
pull?
basic.
Can you pull it up
Uh,
on your screen at all? Since
yeah,
you're sharing it. Let's switch it over. I want the people to see it. I want them to believe. I want them to know
yep.
what's. Oh, there's that one.
Yeah, so if you look at the stock to flow model, that Plan B came up
Oh,
with,
I don't
he's
have. I don't got it.
anonymous.
I don't got it. I don't
I'm
got it.
I, I'm not up yet. I'm
Oh,
looking
okay.
for it
Okay.
still.
Okay.
I'm probably gonna have to go to his Twitter or something. Yeah, he came up with this model that says, the fair value is going to be per the previous cycle. So he's basing it off of the stock to flow, which is the stock is the outstanding supply versus the incoming supply would be the flow. So it's the stock to flow ratio. Comparing historically to gold is what he is specifically talking about. This is just one of his tweets. When you compare it specifically to gold, gold has a very specific stock to flow model. We get a 3% inflation approximately per year. We have some general clue as to how much gold exists. And Bitcoin is right around that exact number right now. And so every halvening, that number changes completely. Um, and so he's saying on this cycle that the fair value of Bitcoin will be $288,000
In U.S. dollars. So.
in US dollars. And that is obviously subject to change. We don't know how much money is going to be printed. We're talking in current dollar value. And Raul Paul has like another famous chart where he has a very similar number in terms of fair value. We'll definitely, we could go above, we could go below.
Yeah.
But fair value, sort of talking average over time, he's kind of charting a $400,000 move for one standard deviation and a $1 million move for a two standard deviation move. And I believe only once did we see in Bitcoin's life did we make a two standard deviation move, which I believe that was the 2014 or the 2013 2014 move that Bitcoin did. Obviously, that is history. So where we're going, nobody knows. I mean, there's the theory that we see exit velocity and that this kind of bull market doesn't end, that anyone who's willing to sell is a fool and any selling will be bought with buying, because you're talking about what is the value of money, what is the value of an asset that is immutable, that it cannot be changed, its supply cannot be changed, backed by energy. What is the actual value of that? And I think it's going to be a lot higher than people tend to think. So I think the people that get it are going to be willing to pay any price that they can to get it. And I think it's just a matter of time that this happens. I don't know if we see it on this cycle or not. It's just going to be very interesting to see how it plays out when the price starts moving up, because we're seeing the signs that there is just no supply and we have to rebalance the price. So I don't know. Nobody knows where it's going to go, but we do know it's up. It's the meme is Bitcoin is coded with the number go up technology, and that is the protocol that the halving cycles that it's based off of. And so this chart, it really just kind of shows specifically what we're talking about. So the colors of the dots indicate the time until the next halving. So here in 2017 was you had your halvening and you kind of had this upward slow movement, and as we get closer and closer to the halvening, we see major price appreciation. So the model says that we are, and this is on a log scale, obviously, so we are going above 100K.
Yeah. So, and the happening for folks that may not know, it's the way that more Bitcoin is released into the market is every 10 minutes the code actually releases a certain amount of Bitcoin into the market, and there's a fixed amount that happens, and every 4 years it's cut in half. And that's done to make sure there's not inflation, right? It's a deflationary asset,
Exactly.
and that's the split is the halvening. So it just happened this past year. I was here.
And
I was here partying for that, streaming on adoption. If you were watching me there,
and
um,
I think what's really important to start talking about on this cycle that not a lot of people are picking up is that this is not going to be a retail driven cycle. The last one was. The last one was almost purely driven by retail speculation, retail money. And if you look at the Google search history of Bitcoin, uh, we're nowhere near the 2017 levels. So retail is definitely sleeping on this. But now, since 2017, there's been a lot more regulation, a lot more change in the space, and the institutions are finally starting to get in. And they're the ones that have all the wealth. They're the ones that are going to be driving this price up. So, and we're seeing we're seeing it today, the billionaires buying in, and some of these models don't take into account billionaires buying, large amounts of Bitcoin, and that would kind of be the exit of this, of this model to the upside, because at some point this model just becomes invalidated due to that reason. Uh, this is more like an adoption curve, that hockey stick of it's Moore's law. This is all about network effects.
right.
And so, the big news today was that Stan Druckenmiller owns Bitcoin. He said it on CNBC today. And I think that's huge. And I think it was him that said it. There's so many people that have bought it recently that I can't keep it. But he said, he says he has Bitcoin, but he has a lot more gold than Bitcoin. But he says he believes that if you're in that gold play, that if gold is going to go up, and you're right, he says Bitcoin is going to go up a lot further.
Right.
So he's kind of indicating that Bitcoin is better than gold, but he's still on this. He's still not 100% about it. It seems like he's kind of in the water, getting his feet wet. And I think that's really, that's the speculation of this market. Is the smart money right now is in gold because they're just kind of waiting to see what's going on. And retail will follow at some point, which will drive the price higher, which will allow the smart money to exit gold. It'll provide the liquidity. It'll provide a price cushion for them to sell out. And that's when they really make their big moves into Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And, we're seeing billionaires by day, or major traders say that, this is something you want to hold.
My favorite thing to remind people about is the wealth transfers with industrial revolutions in history. If you look at the last industrial revolution that happened, this started with the discovery of oil, which led into oil running machinery and all of the additional technologies. But if you look though with these wealth transfers that happen, there's people that miss out, that lose wealth. There's people that gain wealth. Like right now, we're talking about a wealth transfer that's going to happen with this new technology. You bring up the millionaires. I know there's I heard a stat that said there's over 35 million millionaires in the world. There's only 21 million hold Bitcoin. So right now, there's just not enough Bitcoin to exist in circulation.
So I'm going to pull up this picture for you, Joe.
Oh, we're going back. We're going back to the view. Here we are.
Just quick. I think this is an important picture. This was electricity cartoons that were coming out back when the electrical grid was becoming established. These were the naysayers that said, electricity is going to kill you. It's terrible. Clearly, if you took this position, you were an absolute idiot. And so I think, people are going to learn something on this cycle. And Michael Saylor kind of, in one of his more recent podcasts, really put into perspective. It's like when we discovered, so like when we finally found out AC current, this is the way he put it. We were able to electrify whole cities. And he's like, we didn't discover electricity. We discovered how to store electricity. He's like, the first person that was struck by lightning discovered electricity. And Rockefeller, was it Rockefeller? He was the one who came up with the combustion engine, right?
Henry Ford.
Was it Ford? One of those. It was one of the big
oil
guys.
was involved with it either way. I've
Talking
seen
about
an
converting
electric
that-
car from 1903, by the way, or 1905. It would have been possible, but continue.
Yeah, so we're talking about being able to convert oil into useful energy through combustion. And what Bitcoin is we are literally converting energy into money. And there is value behind that because, the physical representation of money, besides all of its other traits, is it really is supposed to be a representation of the energy that you have exerted into society that you can store and save for future time. And so this is a clean system of money, is the way he puts it.
And I think he's right, Jack. And I think he's right.
I think so too. I mean,
let's go. I don't want to totally switch gears on us here, but I'm gonna switch gears on us here because this also. God, finish.
No, we got it. We have other big news to talk about because this is kind of more like
this is big news.
The speculative side. This is the speculative side of what's going
on. This is some hot news that just came in. All right, so I'm gonna flip us now to my chart, I think, or maybe I'm not. Why don't you go back to yours, Jack? Why don't you pull up? No, actually, I take that back. Here, I'm good. All right, I'm good. We're good. All right, y'all. So, what I do, Jack, you can see the screen, right?
Yes.
All right. I'm getting restream. We're good with this. All right, so the latest news is talking about Silk Road. So I want to talk about Silk Road real quick. I want to talk about Ross Ulbricht. I want to talk about the latest article and the latest news we see here about the $1 billion seizure in Bitcoin from the U.S. government. And I want to dig into kind of your view on that and your theory about what the U.S. might do going forward. But first of all, Silk Road. Did you buy anything off the Silk Road? Is it too late to say so now? Is it like we were in college back then, right?
I didn't. I remember hearing about it because, like I said, my friends were mining Bitcoin. Well, they weren't mining Bitcoin. I think it was too hard to mine, but they were mining some shitcoin that doesn't exist through. This was like when it was coming out, where to get people on board, they would basically lend their computing power for you to mine some coin. And that's really where I first heard about it, and I remember it being tied to Silk Road. But no, I do remember seeing the website, but I did not partake.
Yeah, dude, I had no clue what the fuck the Silk Road was.
Yeah, this is really early dark web. Like, you kind of had to really be in there to know.
I disappeared off the grid from like 2010 until like 2013, 14, because I was like deployed for a little bit at that time. I was in the Army at that time, so I had no clue. But now we know. So for those that don't know, the Silk Road was an anonymous marketplace. It was only accessible on the dark web, but it was a website that was established for the transactions of drugs and other type of things, but it was an international trade. It was
supposed to be for anything. It was the libertarian view of a free market. No one could say or have any say in what is listed on there. That was the idea. So it was the black market for drugs, guns, hit services, whatever you name it. It was on there. You can obviously look that up. There's screenshots of that. But the idea was that this was a place for people to trade freely as they wish. But the black market obviously took hold of this.
Yeah. And this individual, Ross Ulbricht, was the one who started that website. And the website only accepted Bitcoin for payments. He was ultimately arrested by the U.S. government and put in prison, life sentence with no parole, 2 life sentences, 40 years without parole. And this is a very controversial case because here you have, a kid at the time, I think, I I don't know if he was a
Yeah, he
minor
was
or
like
not.
just out of college.
Yep.
Like
Who
just out of college. He was a young kid.
Yeah, who put up this website. Would it have normally have gotten that much press if it wasn't accepting Bitcoin or not? What do you think, Jack?
Uh, I don't know.
Is this
I
a
think
big? Is this a
Bitcoin is too
Bitcoin? Is this
small.
is it? But not. But is it a Bitcoin
I
case or
think it's
not?
important now.
Yeah.
I think it's important now, but I think back then it might have been just to assert dominance, say, you're a peasant.
Hmm.
Bitcoin will never make it. It wasn't even, what was the market cap of Bitcoin at the time when he was arrested in 2013?
Probably
I have
quite.
no clue.
Probably quite small.
I assume it's pennies to what it is today, and
Right.
and even still, you can consider it pennies for the U.S. government to care. A lot of people say, maybe $10 trillion, the government will start looking at it. I don't really know. I'm not
Hmm.
in the government, obviously. So I don't think it was really about Bitcoin. I think it was more or less about the drug aspect of it and just the bad things that were going on during, on this website. But obviously, Bitcoin was equally as important. It was still a assertion of power.
So we know now, though. So there's this $1 billion seizure. The
Yeah,
news, the story that I read said that Silk Road had been hacked at one point. This individual stole a bunch of Bitcoin from the Silk Road, and then here we are. Fast forward years later, it's worth $1 billion, and the government found this individual, and they agreed to give them money. So
yeah.
uh, that's a number one. That's a
The
big.
Bitcoin,
That's a
not money. The
the
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. The Bitcoin. That's a big find, though.
Yeah,
I can't imagine keeping that on one hardware wallet.
I mean, I can't speak for what the system was like then or what was going on, but I would assume that 2013, it's only 4 years old.
Hmm.
Security was probably still pretty low. I would assume most things were kept on a hot wallet, even still to this day. Things are kept on a hot wallet. Mount Gox, when it was hacked because everything was on a hot wallet, meaning it was on a device connected to the internet. So, if someone gets access to said device, you potentially have free reign over the funds. I don't know how it was, set up, but I would assume that there was pretty little security because at the time there wasn't any security. There wasn't a lot.
Hmm.
I don't think there was very many hardware devices at all. It was not user friendly. There was a lot of differences back then. So it seems pretty probable that that's how the funds were stolen in the first place.
Mm.
But I think what's really important now is that the government has them. And what does that mean? People are afraid of market participants of like, oh, funds were hacked, blah blah blah. But it's like we're talking an event that happened 7 years ago, likely, and he's just been sitting with this Bitcoin ever since. Um, I don't know when it was hacked, but you know, if you follow Max Kaiser, he talks about the global hash war, and this is kind of something I've let sit on me for a little bit, and I don't. No one knows what the government's really going to do with the money, but this is my guess. My guess is that maybe this people call the central banks stupid, the government stupid, but I don't think they are. I think there's probably some really intelligent people that are within the government that kind of have a grasp on economically what's going on. They know that money printing is the best worst problem for their problems. It's the best solution, even though it's a bad solution. So I think they're aware that the system is hurting, and they probably can't sustain it forever. But they're going to
Hmm.
put on that stone face as if they can. They're going to do it for as long as they can. And I think my opinion is that they would be fools to sell that Bitcoin. And I'm thinking that they might hold on to it. And I'm hoping that they do because, I think if they sell it, it'll be the worst decision that they've ever made. So
It would.
for clarification, they seized the fifth largest wallet in Bitcoin. Two of the top wallets being exchanges, so they don't really count. So we're talking the third largest individual wallet that is not a Bitcoin exchange, which is like I think, I don't
It's
know who
big
the other
bucks.
two are. Yeah, we're talking big money.
It's big bucks.
Um,
It
and,
it it just
and this
paints a
kind of
perfect picture,
secures,
though. It paints a perfect picture, though,
yeah,
of what the U.S. should do from a
yeah,
strategic standpoint.
they should hold on to it. And I think, obviously, that would be smart. Secure it, hold on to it, and wait. And that forces them to not have to really invest in mining right now because they can see where the world is going without needing to expend all that capital.
Mm.
Um, so like Kaiser says, we're fools for not mining, getting into this. He always says now that Trump lost the election because of his disrespect for Bitcoin. That's obviously not why, but uh, you know, he's always talks about Iran mining now, and a lot of things are coming out of Iran with them starting to mine. But it is important. It will be a national security issue. It's like a lot of the mining is currently done in China or by Chinese products.
Mm.
So that is a concern in securing the network. But I think that by them sitting on this, if we do get the bull run that we think, we talking 10x, we talking 100x, we talking this turning into $100 billion of Bitcoin. Who really knows? It's a lot of money though, and I think if they sit on it, it'd be wise. And who's to say what they do with it? But that's my opinion. Is that this kind of buys them time now because they at least have some. That's better than nothing.
Well, they say game theory is built into the code. And game theory is something
Exactly.
we've seen. Game theory meaning, for those that are watching, once one country does it, they all have to do it because of the FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's all built in
Hmm.
from a psychological perspective, and we're starting to finally see more than just the first signs of it. Now it's getting to the point where it's a full-on currency war. What's interesting is, on top of Bitcoin being where it is positioned, is that the US and China and every other country around the world is participating in currency wars. And here Bitcoin is, it's just been slowly growing itself up from a little seed into this beautiful little flower that's blossoming into this nice big bush for all of us to see. And game's on, and whether the
Yeah.
U.S. realizes it or not, I think you're probably right. Local states and municipalities, we're going to get to a point where, to your point, if you're not a country that's reserving Bitcoin as an asset, you're not strategically planning for the future at all. You're not
Yeah.
you're not planning.
No, that is where everything is going. I mean, they're going with the central bank digital currencies, so everything is going digital for one. This is digital gold, but leagues better. So people can kind of wrap their head around that pretty easily once they kind of learn the protocol. But if you understand it, you know that is to be true. To say that this isn't going to have a major change in the world is, I think, is pretty naive. Just look at what technology has done. It's literally eating the world, and as as Rob Paul says, this is like the black hole that is sucking everything in. You look at anything in Bitcoin terms, it's all breaking down. Every single chart. Amazon, Google, Facebook, gold, S&P, anything. It's all breaking down. A few of those companies are not at the all-time lows, but banks are certainly at the all-time lows. How funny is that? Banks are at an all-time low in Bitcoin terms already.
That makes me happy. Hold on.
Bitcoin was what, over
We're
up
gonna
over 100% year to date.
let's let's let's
So
let's give an applause to the banks failing. They've been stealing from you for years, folks.
they have, and people allow it. It's uh, you know I don't want to say it's just they allow it. They just don't even know it's happening. I think people are starting to get the idea that something is wrong. What is wrong is really the question that I think modern politics have argued about, and I think they've done a really good job of distracting the people from really truly understanding the root of the problem.
Mm.
It's a lot easier to say it's the left or the right than it is to say it's the government's policy.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, So I think that's where we are right now.
I think
But
it's good, bro.
yeah,
I got these guys. Have you seen them?
I
For
have. You
for
showed me
people
them in
for people
person.
that are wondering all day today, this is the magical crypto friends. What are they? Well, they're some of the best people in the world, the most magical people in the crypto world. So you'll be learning more about them as they're on my set here. But that's it, dude. I think this is gonna be it. I gotta go. I think we talked enough tonight. We gave a pretty good update.
Yeah,
I think we
certainly.
showed the charts. We talked about growth cycles. We talked about how Bitcoin works, where it's going, or at least what the charts are saying. Again, dollar cost averaging. That's how you buy Bitcoin. I left a link to the Swan Bitcoin tutorial, and that's it, man. If y'all got any questions, leave them in the comments section. It's something we're trying to do now. I think Bitcoin coaching is something that we're going to be looking into going forward. A lot of people need that,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I think there's certainly some potential there. I think a lot of people know what it is and they want access to it, but they're too afraid to do it themselves. And uh, people want a trusted custodian still, and I think that is still being developed. It'll obviously there will be something there in the future, but people still don't really know how to hold this,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of boomers that probably won't ever know how to, and they don't want to know how to, but they want it. So there's
And,
definitely
and keep following us, and we'll tell you how to get it. It's going to be it, y'all. I think, let's give one more applause for Jack. Thanks for coming on again, Jack, for our wine Bitcoin update night 2 with Jack. Thanks,
always a
Jack.
pleasure.
Thanks, Shaq. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks again for everyone who stick around the whole time. I hope you learned a lot. Gave you a little insight into, where Bitcoin is as of November 2020, kind of some future projections on the charts. Again, you could buy Bitcoin on Cash App. You could buy it on Swan Bitcoin for your dollar cost averaging. Keep staying tuned on Joe Rap TV. See, this is a portal into my world. I'm introducing you to Jack. We're talking about Bitcoin. We got a little magical crypto friends here. It's a pretty good channel to be subscribing to. But that's going to be it. Jack, we're going to have you on pretty soon too. And we're going to be collaborating together to put out a
Hmm.
shit ton of good crypto tutorials and content. So definitely stay tuned to the channel and you'll be seeing those videos coming out in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, a lot of big stuff coming soon. You know, anything I have to say, just get a little bit. For the love of God, just get a little bit.
Just a
Whether
little
it's
bit.
1%, a half a percent, just get enough to get involved and get enough to say, before the price really starts to appreciate.
Do that salt based shit.
Yeah.
Sprinkle it. You know what to do. This is your escape. All right, y'all. We're going to talk to y'all soon. Thanks for joining us. And subscribe, share, give us a little emoji. We'll see y'all soon.